there is no problem that people could not solve if they were prepared to do what it takes, because there is no problem that people do not create. We only need to stop doing what we are doing that leads to the problem. The problem with eliminating our social problems is admitting that we are the problem. Putting people in jail is not the solution, it only contributes to the problem. Jailing criminals is too little too late. The solutions people talk of do not address the fundamental cause of the problem, which is what they are doing wrong. The left blames the right and the right blames the left. No one looks at themselves. Both sides think that if everyone became what they are, the problems would be solved. That is only because they do not think they are a problem. The left and socialist think the world needs to be left and socialist. The right thinks we all need to be capitalists and supporters of the free market. The end result is that both sides think the other side is the problem, and think the solution is for everyone in the world to become like them. The solution to every problem is not to push your side's agenda and principles on the other side. The solution is not to diminish or eradicate the other side's agenda and principles. In the effort to destroy them and build up our side, we end up in a cultural war, where both sides think they are right. No one needs to be told both sides cannot be right. They cannot be, but you do understand, don't you? It is possible for both sides to be wrong. Imagine a hole needs to be dug. It ought to be a simple problem. But there are two groups that form around the problem. One side thinks it must be dug by a government agency and under the supervision of a public authority. Another group thinks a private company ought to be contracted to do the work. Are there no problems associated with public works projects? Has there never been a public works project that has caused any problem or be found to do something that might have been done better using the market? Has the private sector never been found to be guilty of greed, corruption, and graft? Because if you can find a problem with one of the possible solutions and others can find problems with the other, the reality is, both options are as wrong as they are right. The reality is the two sides of the problem could debate for hundreds and thousands of years and never come to a unanimous decision as to which process is best for getting a hole dug. If we are looking for a day when the issue is settled and everyone will think like you, you are part of the problem. The more the group adopts one side or the other, the more obvious it will be that there are a lot of serious problems with the solution, which is why neither side will convince the other side they are wrong. But since neither side can convince the other, democracy is used to convince us we are all one people, that there is deep down a commonality. Democracy implies that the differences between groups is superficial and that it is possible to put aside our differences and work together. We let the majority rule. But one can only put aside differences if they do not matter. Secularist positions are relative. Even if two secularists think quite differently, the differences tend to be ones of degree. Christianity is, however, qualitatively different from secularism. Believing in Jesus is not relative to his rejection. Though many atheists would like to convince Christians that we can believe in Jesus in private, and while in public, put on a secular persona. This inherent commonality of man is borne out or seems to be proved true by the very battle between left and right. The differences are one of degree. The more we fight, the more we realize there is little that divides us that is fundamental. One group wants more government subsidies, the other wants less. One wants more government ownership and nationalization, the other wants less. It is frequently said that conservatives are the liberal anchor. Liberals are progressive and conservatives are progressives at a lower and less strident rate. Canada boasts a progressive conservative party. It is not the policy that divides us, it is the direction in which the policy is heading. Socialists want more and more socialism. Conservatives want less and less. Neither side is willing to give up their gains nor permit the other side to maintain their gains. But then the question gets asked, how can a modern democracy have a truly liberal or a truly conservative party if the government needs a majority to form a government? We all know a communist party will never get elected, and a libertarian or anarchist government is even less likely. To form a government, the party must look to be providing more social benefits to liberals and less in the minds of conservatives. The truth is, the last thing the world needs is a small group of rich and powerful families owning all the world's assets, which is where an unfettered free market will take us. But the other thing the world does not need is a small group of rich and powerful families controlling the world's asset using the power of a dictatorial state, which is where socialism will take us. A compromise between left and right is an acceptance of an entrenched ruling elite owning and controlling everything. The elite do not care what religion you are or what political path you are on, they only want you to accept their authority. Even more importantly, they want you to accept their culture, because it is through the agency of their culture that their agenda is legitimized. There are two groups in this world, and these groups correspond to two races and two cultures. These cultures are so distinct they correspond to two different realities. These statements may appear at the very least to be hyperbole and at worst, the ramblings of a madman. Technically, those of the other reality are mad. That is how distinct the cultures are. The mistake we have made is letting a tribal dispute become a proxy war. This tribal dispute between left and right minimizes the differences between the two races and turns the war into a dispute between political and economic and religious priorities. What humanity faces is an extinction event and a race war. This is uncomfortable for most people to read. It is as if apes had rose up to challenge us and were winning. Which is why most of us prefer to vote and hope the person elected will minimize the division. But the division we see is nothing more than a diversion. We can make peace with evil only by becoming a servant of the devil. But no one thinks they have made a true deal with the real devil. If they were asked, no one would know what the phrase even means. The devil, in the eyes of Christians, is on the other side of the political aisle. As Christians, we vote for the best candidate. We stand strong against all forms of evil, knowing it is represented by those whom we oppose. In this, Christians are not much different from atheists. We are not the judge of good and evil, whether we are Christian or atheist. It does not matter which side you are on, if the system itself is evil. There are three subsystems that make up our cultures. These are the economic, political, and religious systems. They have their left and right versions. Both options, left and right, are evil and of the devil. Jesus did not laugh when Satan offered him the kingdoms of this world. That is because these kingdoms and their systems are his. The dynamics of this system operate as a two-piston pump. It does not matter if you operate the left or the right piston, the end result is still the same. The kingdom of Satan moves forward. The left is concerned about the poor and want more resources to the lower levels of society. The right is concerned about the market and the productive forces of society, and so want more resources to be committed to the activity of wealth creation. The elite administrate the process and concentrate more and more wealth and power in fewer and fewer hands. It is not the process that is important, it is the fruit it produces. Regardless of whether we slant left or right, unearned income is created and transferred to those who never earned it and have no right to it. Both left and right have their justification for parasites. Parasitism creates a culture of entitlement and represents a racial type. We are not used to thinking of a race as a personality type, but race has nothing to do with skin color. The freeloader is a liberal, the culture they create is the Babylonian. The key feature of a liberal is that liberalism advocates or legitimizes freeloading. To have an elite, there has to be a way to legitimize freeloading. The ultimate freeloader is the globalist who ends up owning and controlling everything. Freeloaders have a problem, they cannot just take what they want. They would end up fighting each other and those who they see as a host organism. Liberals need to overcome the resistance of the host and find a way to coordinate their parasitic operations. Freeloading used to be done by or through the waging of wars, but wars become self-defeating. Unless the power disparity is great, the cost of the war will exceed any benefit gotten. Defeating enemies generally only creates more enemies. So, the elite need a justifier, something that makes their free riding appear justified. The right would have us believe investors are justified in their expropriations because they risked their resources to set up a business. Socialists say they are justified in their expropriations because humans have a right to the same things. But these arguments only work if there is a force available to overcome the resistance of those who disagree with you. Capitalists need the military to convince socialists of their right to private property. Socialists need the military to convince those with private property that the needy have a right to share in the national wealth. But a reliance of military might alone leads to perpetual warfare. This is where the law enters the picture. The law justifies the expropriations of both left and right, because it masquerades as something we are all required to live by. But it is only the law that says we are all compelled to live according to the law. But what law is needed if no one lived off of the avails of another? If there was no parasitism and if we all abjured from free riding, why would government or its regulatory activities be needed? The law only regulates the level and intensity of parasitic activity. It has no other purpose. Eliminate all parasitism and you have removed the need for the law. If you are exposed to law, you are exposed to criminal activity. So there are two races and two cultures in this world. One is based on the law. There is another culture that is based on faith. It does not need the law because it abjures all parasitism and all free riding. And so the question becomes, which culture do you wish to live in? Which people do you belong to?